All right, audio is on.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Park and Rec Commission meeting for June. Just want to advise everyone, we're on LCTV tonight, and you're being recorded. I've been told I need to say that. So as a formal meeting, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have minutes first on our agenda, but the Littleton Gardeners are here, and I believe there's a travel concern, so we'd like to get them right up and see what they have to say. It's regarding removing bushes around the Fay Park gazebo and replacing them with hydrangeas. So if you could just introduce yourself, you can come on up.
I'm Lynn Warren, and my civic site is gazebos. It's a gazebo at Fay Park, and I'm the captain. And for years, there's tons of poison ivy integrated and the pachysandra, and the Littleton Country Gardeners want to revamp the plantings there and make it so that they're it's much more beautifying than poison ivy and pachysandra.
Excellent.
So, yeah, and we're willing to do the work and to pay for the hydrangeas. And Lois Barkis, who just passed away, she's actually instrumental in getting the gazebo built.
Lois is actually my wife's grandmother.
Oh, yeah,
So yeah, she was a wonderful, wonderful woman.
yeah, we love Lois.
I remember when I first started dating my wife, she would tell she was always doing the plant. I don't know if it was a fair, in the common.
Plant sale, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, she was
Yeah.
very involved.
Well, the Girl Scouts just, but their parents just painted it, so it looks really nice. You guys
They
did
did
that.
it awesome. Yeah, they
Yeah.
redid all the decking. Yep, we just actually had them at the Board of Selectmen meeting 2 weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So we have, one of our members has a tractor with a digger,
Mm-hmm.
small one.
Yep.
And my husband and I own a bed that we can bring it over there and dig everything out. We probably won't plant until September, when it's not so hot. And also I have to go before the club and get an allowance for the hydrangeas.
Okay.
And I'm in conjunction with, be talking to, I forget his name, who I mentioned earlier.
From the highway department?
Rick Finley?
Oh, Rick
Yeah,
Finley.
Rick Finley,
Okay.
yes, of course.
Yeah.
And, because he's a real hydrangea expert. So, anyway, that's my story.
Okay. Great. You brought up the highway department.
I did.
Have we had any discussions about concerns on their end as far as new plantings?
Yeah, so Stephen Witten, who is in charge of all of the parks and maintenance of them, so he just wants to get on the same page about it, because the concern that they have is when they mow, they want to make sure like they're not going to take out a hydrangea that you planted. So they would like to work and coordinate with you just to make sure that it makes sense for how they do their maintenance on a weekly basis, so that we're protecting what you're, taking the time and effort to
We're gonna
plant.
have a bed, I can show you all drawings, once we get it cleaned out. That's the main thing. Right now, it's so bad, full of poison ivy.
Right, it is.
And we've gotta root out all that and just make the beds clean. Then we'll come back to you if you'd like, and I'll show you a drawing, where we'll do like a flower bed around it, and it'll be mulched, it'll be, edged,
Okay.
so that the hydrangeas won't go over the bed.
Gotcha.
And
It's
we-
actually, right now it's so overgrown, but when I was out there with the Girl Scouts, it is actually trimmed out with a 4x4 pressure treated bed already. That comes, it's about 3 feet out from the gazebo, so
Oh, good, okay.
you'll find that once you start digging. We were looking for the water and we found the edge of the bed too.
Yeah, we gotta be careful for that,
Yeah,
because
so there's water and
there is
electric,
water
so just be
there.
mindful of that as
Yes.
well.
Absolutely.
And then
That's a good idea.
egress
We
in
might
and
do
out of
that
the
part
park.
by hand.
Yeah, egress in and out of the park, you're gonna have to worry about, especially if you're bringing in a machine. So make sure you talk to Highway. They just did a considerable berm rebuild behind the
Yes.
playground, so that actual access road by that particular time may actually be moved into the forest rather than be actually on the grass of the park. So that's gonna be something that's going to
Okay,
decide.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as
so
long as
I'll-
we coordinate, that's
So all I
Yeah.
need permission right now is just really just getting rid of all the bad stuff around it. And then I'll make the bed look pretty
Mhm.
for the summer, because if there's weddings or functions there.
Yeah.
And then September, we'll put in the hydrangeas, but I'll come back to you.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I don't know if you need to, I
Come
mean,
back?
we'd be happy to hear from you.
Well,
But I know it's, you know,
I don't need
it's
to
tough
come to a
coming
meeting,
up.
but I can sure pass
I
along
can-
with you all. and
Yeah,
the
so I think
highway
we
department.
can kind of formulate a vote tonight that's contingent on highway approval
Sure,
in
that's a good
coordination.
idea.
And then you can just get with Alicia and Tim,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they can coordinate with the highway and save you a
We're
trip
gonna
up.
get dwarf ones, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they won't turn into like,
Oh, yeah.
it's all,
And I've been captain
Those are
there
pretty,
for
though.
22 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've been doing the tree,
I
decorating it.
have wedding pictures there.
There you go.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
Oh, sure, sure, there you go. Well, we'd like to make it prettier now, I mean, especially for proms and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if the board's good with it, if you're interested, you know, if you wanna come to one of the third Thursdays, once you have your plans out and maybe collect
Yeah.
donations or something to help you guys offset the
That'd be cool,
cost,
yep.
definitely would be,
Sure.
happy to have you.
Yeah, I'll talk to the gang.
Okay.
Well, thank you to you and all the
And
other
this
gardeners.
is my
Captain.
captain, yes, thank you, Ning.
Thank you for coming. Thank you both
you.
for, and all the country gardeners for everything you do for the town. I
Oh,
appreciate
you're
it.
welcome,
Yeah,
you're
thanks.
welcome, really.
So,
appreciated.
I'm sorry. Yep, thanks. So I'll entertain a motion and let's put something in there that's contingent on highway approval, highway department approval.
So I'll make a motion to approve the removal of the bushes with coordination by highway and the replacement of hydrangeas by the Littleton Country Gardeners
At the Fay Park gazebo.
at the Fay Park gazebo.
Good?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Great. Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Go to the airport.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get the minutes out of the way. We have minutes for May 1st and May 14th.
Before you peruse, I just wanted to let you know this was the packet from the first. I didn't want that to make copies for all of you, so if you do want, it's just the
Emails.
letters, emails, all that stuff from the discussions that we had. So
Okay.
just wanted to be clear, that's all in there. Yeah.
Tim, do you want to queue up the presentation while we're doing this?
Okay.
I think let's just ready to go,
Yeah.
we're just unplugged.
I move we accept the minutes for May 1st.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes for May 1st, 2019?
Aye.
Okay.
You got the other, you have two sets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting for a motion.
Yeah, we gotta, I'll motion
Oh,
to
sorry.
accept the minutes for May 14th, 2019.
Okay, all those in favor of accepting the minutes for?
I'll second it.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thanks. All those in favor of approving the minutes for May 14th, 2019? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So now we're gonna move into the discussion around the special town meeting that's coming up on June 26th.
Correct.
So this is based on a citizen's petition that they were able to get 200 signatures to force the town into a special town meeting within 45 days. They exercised that option rather than waiting until the fall, which was presented to them as an option. when they submitted their petition to the town clerk. So I think what we're going to do, so what we'll do is, we have a presentation. We gave something similar to the Board of Selectmen a few weeks ago, June 3rd. So we're going to present that again here. And then I have a statement I'm going to read on my behalf, and I'm hoping the commissioners agree with it. We'll have a discussion afterwards. And then if anyone from the public would like to ask any questions, provide any input, we're more than happy to hear from anyone. For what it's worth, I invited the petitioner again to this meeting, made it clear that it would not be a hostile environment. We weren't looking to pressure her to withdraw the petition. It's too late for that anyways. We just want to have a discussion. We still have yet to have a discussion with the actual petitioners. I didn't hear back from them one way or the other, they're not here tonight, but they were invited. So I'll leave it at that. So Alicia, if you want to jump into your presentation.
Absolutely. So this is similar to a presentation that I did at the Council of Aging Board earlier this week, last week. And so what we did is we kind of broke up the petition sentence by sentence to go through and just kind of discuss what it means. So the first line of the petition, I can read it. Why is this different here? Let's go here. Oh, it's been funny. Okay. The Board of Committee with care, custody, and control of any town-owned property, including without limitation, any park, playground, public building, schoolhouse, school grounds, or parking lot may rent or allow the use of any town-owned property to members of the public, individuals, and groups, both profit and nonprofit, for reasonable uses at reasonable times. So this is currently how the town system works. So there's, nothing really in contention about that. That's how each of the departments works individually. They all have their own policies and procedures, but that's the basis of how we work. So line 2, why is this being funny? Sorry, guys.
We're trying to.
So it's on slideshow, but it's not going through them. All right, so I'm just gonna click through and go. It's like frozen.
I can flip through it if you want.
Well, it's different than what I've got, but,
Okay, I'll just do the first.
Okay.
So you can.
all right, so line 2, I'll just talk about it while we're trying to get it back online. So this one is where we have a little bit of, issue, and there's a lot of ambiguity about the specific sentence. So the board or committee with care, custody, and control of any town-owned property will grant priority in the rental or use of the town-owned property to nonprofit organizations, and particularly encourage the use of town-owned property by community groups, and particularly those groups which serve the needs of youth for the region. So with that, we clearly feel that there's a lot of vagueness that goes into the hierarchy that's putting nonprofit users potentially over all other users. So, that could be interpreted, are they the ones that are the top of the priority? So does that trump, the departments of the town? It just depends on how that would be interpreted. Community groups is vague. With the residency status, are we talking about community residents here of Littleton? Are we talking about Neshoba Valley? So is this regional? What are we talking about specifically? So there is no specific definition of what that community groups means. The third part of that, which is a large issue, especially with, we have a large population from the Council on Aging here tonight. Friends of? Yes. Friends of Council on Aging. So this specifically says that they were focusing on the groups which serves the needs of the youth, right? So that's putting the youth over the priority of seniors, over families, over adults. And again, that's not, in my opinion, my personal professional opinion, that's not a correct way of creating a bylaw. And then regionally, so when we're talking about region, so individuals that are outside of this town are using town-owned, taxpayer-funded properties, right? So is that, again, something that, we want to kind of open that discussion and have? So this sentence has a lot of interpretation issues to kind of deal with. All right, still not coming up?
Yeah, I don't know what's
Going on with it? I could
on
try
your
to
desktops, but it's not coming up on the slideshow.
try it one more time.
It did work good the other day.
Yeah, it was fine. Funny. I can try to
What's that?
Alt tab.
close it.
Alt tab.
Hold down Alt, press tab.
Alt, tab.
Okay, that's all I know.
Nice try. Thanks, Anthony.
Try tab alt. All right,
There you go.
Hey!
can you
All right.
progress though? There you go.
All right.
Hey, hey! Went too far now.
So what was
Okay.
that Alt tab?
So, the third line. And I apologize, I know this is dry running through this, but just, I want to go through it line by line so that it makes sense. So line 3, the above provisions shall apply to any schoolhouse or school grounds to the extent that the school committee has delegated care, custody, and control to another town board or committee. And we have Mike Fontanella here tonight, so the school committee has 100% control of the school facilities. So that is not part of the Parks and Rec to decide how they use the schools by any means. The reference is being made to the memorandum of understanding, and to be very clear about the memorandum of understanding, and it's agreement between the public schools, the Board of Selectmen, and the Park Commission, and the agreement is essentially for the use of indoor space for our Parks and Rec programs, in exchange for us taking care of the athletic fields. That's it. So there is no veto power from our department, from this board. So I don't know if you wanted to speak to that, Mike, at all?
The only additional clarification I would put out there is that when we think about the hierarchy, we have the MOU, the town charter clearly supersedes any MOUs that are propagated between departments, but Mass General Law supersedes the town charter. And Mass General Law clearly states that school committees retain discretion and control of all school property.
Yeah.
End of the story.
Yeah.
So no matter what we decide as a town, we think we want to do, we cannot supersede Mass General Law.
Right.
In practice, we can do what we want, the school committee can do what they want with the grounds in terms of working with other departments, which we do, and have no problem with. But in terms of trying for any petitioner, whether it's a town board or citizens, to try to supersede Mass General Law through the town charter, that can't happen.
Thank you.
And I just want to, Mike made a good point. I went to the school committee meeting last Thursday. Mike made a good point there that the MOU it's an agreement between 3 entities in town. It's not a contract. So if the school committee at any time decides that they want to do something outside, or that's, against the MOU per se, they can vote to do it. We would have no recourse. It's just simply an agreement that we have to try to, we're just trying to work with the other departments to create the programming, and we need space to run our programming. Space is hard to come by in town, so.
What does MOU mean?
Memorandum of Understanding. Sorry, thank you.
All right, so, the summation of this article. So I highlighted some of the pieces here, because the whole sentence is completely contradictory to itself. So I'll read it for you. That an event or program that is similar to any parks, recreation, and community education event shall not be grounds to deny the use of any town-owned property, provided, however, that the rental of any park, playground, public building, schoolhouse or school grounds will not be allowed if it directly interferes with student activities, school-related functions, or any other parks, recreation, and community education offerings or events. Okay? So it does contradict itself, but also it's singling out a specific department. So, when we're trying to create a bylaw, everything is supposed to be inclusive. And especially when we're dealing with, the different departments, especially departments that have care, custody, and responsibility for all these other buildings and facilities. So it's a non-inclusive article. And reality, again, when we talk about how this could be interpreted, it's not considering future buildings like if Elder and Human Services, if you guys get a senior center, the Reuben Hoare Library, which potentially could be built within the next year. So those buildings, those big facilities are not being considered as part of this petition. So those are kind of the issues with the petition as, we see it through this department. So we have had questions about the history of the interactions with Mr. Lewis, so I did want to kind of go through what the history has been. So Mr. Lewis ran a program with Lisa Paradis, who was the director 3 generations ago, if you will. So this was about 15, I think Mr. Lewis said that it was 20 years ago in his Westford community YouTube posting video. So 15, 20 years ago, very long time ago. So we don't have anything on file that documents, when he worked for us specifically. It's not the practice to keep information that long. So eventually he went off and he started his own business and kind of separated ways from the department. So in the years that passed, Lisa moved on to Brookline and became the recreation director there. And then Kate Hodges came into the director role. So in that meantime, other instructors were found to run, that specific programming. If that's our common practice, if we lose an instructor and it's a successful program, we do try to find somebody to keep the programs going. So in that tenure that Mrs. Hodges was there, he did attempt to get the Park Commission to dissolve the department, and that he offered to take it over privately and run the department. And Fred, I don't know if you were there during that time frame, but the Park Commission at that time said, no thank you for the offer. He had been before the Park Commission at that point in time. So, yeah, they supported the park director and the staff at that time. So Ms. Hodges left in 2019. Sharon Martell was the interim.
2014.
I'm sorry, I don't know why I said 19, I'm thinking today. Thank you. 2014, and Sharon Martell was the interim for most of 2015, and then I myself was hired in July 2015. So when I first arrived, Mr. Lewis did approach me. We had a meeting, he came to my office, talked about his tennis programs, and I had explained that we did have a successful program that was going through the schools at this current time. However, if we needed any help in the future, that we would reach out, and we have an open process that people can essentially go online, fill out a form if you want to instruct a class. We're looking for instructors now. So it's a relatively easy process to follow. So then this brings us up to our most up-to-date interactions. So on May 9th, 2017, Mr. Lewis came and spoke before the Park Commission, pretty much as we see it here. There was a few different people on the board, but he had a request of Kelly Clenchy, Superintendent of Schools, to offer a for-profit, he was offering to do a free program, but essentially the program was like, you try one class for free, or do you remember it was one or three?
Three
for
free lessons.
And then you had to pay to continue to
If
do
you
the
continue
programming.
through his programming, yeah.
And that was something that he wanted to do directly with the Tiger's Den program. So at the time, we had said that, we were already offering after-school tennis programs, and that, we were working with Tiger's Den, we were bringing kids over and back. So, at that point in time, that would be, competition. So you're not going to have two programs that are going to be running at the same time. So that's the instance when we talk about a non-compete section. Essentially, the schools aren't going to do programming that's going to mimic what we're doing, and vice versa. We're not going to do programming that the schools are doing. So for example, the schools are responsible for doing like SAT programs and prep and things like that, and that's something that we don't touch.
Which we actually used to, right?
I don't know if we used to, but we're offered quite often. People, want to offer those programs through our department, but
That's something that came up
leave
in
it up to the
in the
school.
school committee meeting as well, that's something that the schools are more well-versed in
Absolutely.
giving providing to the community, so that's something they do that we could very easily do, that we have no problem with the schools taking that on.
Absolutely. All right, so,
Just, one point of clarification, your
Sure.
first bullet point, you said the board was more or less how it's consisted now. It was only Mike Lavasser and myself were on that commission.
Kevin
wasn't here yet.
Okay.
No, that was my first meeting.
Kevin
which
it
was
is-
was
Gary
your
and
first
Mike
meeting
Rory.
and Tim's first meeting too, yeah. All right. So that evening at that meeting, the Park Commission did task Mr. Lewis to go and work with the athletic director at the time. He's still there. To work with the athletic director, that they would create a middle school team, because his concern was for creating a feeder system for the tennis program. So that's what the Park Commission had asked of him. All right, so what else here? So then on June 1st, 2018, Mr. Lewis posted a timed website in which he threatened to sue the town. His letter to the town was responded to by the town solicitor over the course of last summer, and no further action was taken to sue the town. So then now we're at the point where Mr. Lewis, through Liz Armento, whose husband volunteers with him as a tennis coach, which
For the high school.
for the high school, which Liz and Jeff are residents of Littleton. So they are the ones that put in this voter petition, though I believe Marcus is the one that really got the 200 signatures for this.
Yeah.
So, and then we are where we are now. Yep. All right,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
So I have a statement I'm going to read, kind of goes over a little bit of what Alicia just talked about. But, there's been some things put out there on social media. There was a video posted today in an interview type setting. And it's, well, I'll just read my statement. So as you know, a special town meeting has been called in order to consider an article that would change our town bylaws regarding how we allocate use of our town and school property to outside groups. Ostensibly, this is being driven by a citizen's petition, which would lead one to believe that it is addressing concerns raised by Littleton residents who feel that the way the town, specifically the PRCE department and the school department allocate use of town and school property is unfair and shortchanges Littleton residents. In reality, the PRCE staff is more than willing to work with the community to hold events or programs. We recently worked hand in hand with the PTA to host a color run, despite the fact that it meant pushing one of our races out to the fall. We worked together with a local Girl Scout troop on a cooperative effort to host the annual egg hunt. Last year, we worked with a local Boy Scout troop to refurbish the flagpole at Castle in the Trees. We work with the Scouts, the youth sports teams, the Rotary Club, and many members of our community when we host our community cleanup event. We offer our youth sports organizations fundraising activities through the community nights at the Lowell Spinners and UMass Lowell Hockey. We don't take a dime from those events, even though our staff invests a lot of time coordinating those events. We frequently waive our park fee for nonprofit groups when they host events like the Community Fair and the Polar Plunge. We host Third Thursday, where anyone can come and sell whatever they want or raise awareness for a cause like building a new library. Last year, we received the Community Support Award from the Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts for our contributions in helping our local Girl Scout troop reach their full potential on the Girl Scout Bronze Award project. We have a strong working relationship based on mutual goals for youth programming with the school department and the library. An SAT program, which we were just talking about, my understanding was it was formerly run by the park department, and it's now under the direction of the school department because both parties felt that it was most appropriate. The library runs a girls coding program that was evaluated by both the Park and Rec department and the library and ultimately stayed with the library. We no longer run a coding program. We are more than happy to work with the community to bring as many high-quality events and programs to our community as we can. The overall notion that we are denying the town free programming is simply untrue. As I detailed above, we are dedicated to working with the community, and we are dedicated to working with the other town entities so that we can offer programming that simply does not overlap. We don't want to offer the same things as the library or the schools. We want to work together to not, overlap our programming. Unfortunately, the reason why we're facing a special town meeting is not, for one specific article, is not because of the initial concerns of a Littleton residents, but rather because of the concerns of one particular non-resident. In May of 2017, I sat at the commissioner's table for the first time. During that meeting, which Alicia was just talking about, we heard from Marcus Lewis, a tennis instructor and coach who owns a for-profit tennis facility in Acton, and who is also the varsity tennis coach in Littleton. He pitched us on bringing quote-unquote free tennis, 3 free lessons, to Littleton via Tiger's Den. I went in with an open mind. I had no knowledge of the backstory. I had no idea who Marcus Lewis was. We listened to Marcus Lewis for over an hour. We asked him questions, and ultimately we explained to him that we already had a successful after-school tennis program, and we were happy with our instructor, so thanks, but no thanks. When he got that answer, he switched gears and complained that he had no feeder program for the high school team, and that's what he was looking to do. We suggested that he talk to Mike Lynn, the athletic director, and see if they could work together to start a team. Working with the athletic director and the middle school principal, Mr. Lewis set up a tennis program, which Parks and Rec was completely fine with. Mr. Lewis has stated that, quote, things should never, ever, ever have reached this point, but understand that I have only been looking for a conversation, unquote. The notion that Mr. Lewis was ignored or wasn't able to sit down with the town is wrong, plain and simple. Over the past few years, Mr. Lewis has met with Alicia Day, our current Park and Rec director, as well as Kate Hodges, the previous director. He's also met with the athletic director and the chairman of the school committee, as well as the Tigers Den director and the superintendent of schools. We put him on our agenda for one of our meetings. We had a conversation, we asked some questions, as I just said. We ultimately felt we didn't need his service. For Mr. Lewis and now Mr. Aramento to claim that Mr. Lewis was ignored is again wrong. The problem for Mr. Lewis appears to be that even after meeting with more than 10 representatives of the town and schools, he wasn't happy with the answers he was getting. At that point, Mr. Lewis started a website with a clock ticking down through the day that if he didn't get what he wanted, he would, quote, pursue legal recourse, unquote. When the town administration did not bow to Mr. Lewis's threat and the clock hit 0, the campaign to force a town meeting began. Mr. Lewis found himself a proxy to enact his plan via his high school assistant tennis coach and that tennis coach's wife. And over the course of several months, Mr. Lewis was able to collect 200 signatures necessary to force a special town meeting. If you look at his Facebook page or his website, the pictures of people signing are with Mr. Lewis. He's at Market Basket. He's at the town dump. He's at Friends, excuse me?
We don't call it the dump.
Transfer station.
Transfer station, sorry. He's at the Friends of Council on Aging meeting, sugarcoating what he was asking for. Not content to take no for an answer, Mr. Lewis is exactly where he wants to be at this point in the process. He stated so months ago on his website, quote, remember, this will not be an article at an annual town meeting. 200 signatures triggers its own meeting, so you will not have to wait until 11:30 p.m. to vote on it. To ensure this, the signatures will be submitted at a time to ensure the meeting takes place in late May or sometime in June, unquote. And, quote, because this meeting is only for one bylaw change, it's an in and out mission. You will not be there very long, unquote. Believe it or not, I do agree with Mr. Lewis on one point. It is unfortunate that we've reached this point. However, I disagree with every argument he poses for why we are here and would instead offer that we are only here because Mr. Lewis refuses to take no for an answer. It is also even more unfortunate that he has shown that he is willing to manipulate the process in order to pursue his narrow-minded and self-serving purpose. So given all that, I encourage the rest of the commission members to vote not to support this article at the special town meeting, and I would encourage Littleton residents to come out and also vote no at the special town meeting. Thank you. So at this point, I'd like to hear from the rest of the commission. If you have anything you want to add, anything you disagree with, certainly, let's discuss if you guys have anything.
I will point behind you that currently the Board of Selectmen, Library Trustees, School Committee, and Council on Aging have all voted to not support this voter's petition. Tim left the meeting to go up to Conservation Commission where he's at right now, and then you all will be taking your vote tonight.
Okay.
I'll say I'm not gonna support this. My son actually took some of the free lessons from Marcus Lewis at some point, and then we transferred over to the Parks and Recs tennis program, and he loved it. But that's neither here nor there. I've seen the videos, I've seen some of the Facebook stuff, and I do think that Mr. Lewis is just trying to dig his heels in when someone said no to him.
Yeah, I think it's also worth mentioning that this past spring, we've offered 2 free tennis jamborees. We mentioned it at the Board of Selectmen meeting. Every kid who came, all they had to do was register through the Park and Rec registration system. They got a free racket, free balls, and a free T-shirt. And they did station-based tennis practice, learning to play and everything. So, the notion that we're not offering free tennis is not true as well. We're going to go through the board first, and then we'll take public comment. Thank you.
I also agree with not supporting this, and I was involved in this from day one when he first came to the town, and his issue was never providing free tennis to anybody. He wanted to run a for-profit program. He was told no, and from the first decision that we made, it became contentious. And his interpretation and his memory is somewhat faulty as to what went on. And it became even more contentious when he took private information about some of the commission members and some of the department employees and promulgated that through other recreation departments, including the towns of Acton and Natick and Sudbury. And at that point, we decided, along with Bonnie Fleck, that we were not going to have anything to do with him, and this is the result of that. And so I would suggest we just put him out to pasture.
I think it's a very well-written letter, and I support it 100%.
Thanks. All right, do you have anything, Alicia?
No, I think we've kind of talked about this ad nauseum, so.
Okay. So we'll open it up to the
Open the
public.
gates.
If you have a question, comment, concern, happy to hear from you. Just state your name and address for the record.
Nancy Levine, Gristmill Road, and I'm also the Vice President of the Friends of the Council on Aging. And I'm embarrassed to tell you that I signed the petition, and he did come to our meeting, and what he spoke to us about was nothing what the petition said, nothing. And the Friends of the Council on Aging have also voted not to support this article. But he talked about tennis, free programs being denied at all levels. We did not, and when I saw the petition, I was questioning it because I know I signed it, my signature was right there, but I didn't see that. I was very confused, and I wasn't alone, because it's a very long, complicated paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're standing outside at the market basket and you're trying to read it, you're not. You're just listening to him.
Right.
So I know everyone that signed it is embarrassed like I am, but no one knew that they were signing what they signed.
Right.
So never again.
Well, I appreciate you coming out tonight, and I know you were at the Board of Selectmen meeting on June 3rd, so I appreciate you coming out and sharing your views. In my eyes, what happened at your meeting is one of the worst parts of how this process was carried out. As I think, I don't know if it was you or another woman that was here that night mentioned that he sugarcoated what was actually in the petition.
You know, with Sharon Corbett.
Yeah, so, to take advantage of you guys, I think you mentioned that you had heard from him or in some way, and you invited him to your meeting because you wanted to hear both sides of the story.
Yes, right.
And that's admirable, and that's how all boards should
He
be.
said no one would listen to him.
Yeah, and we detailed tonight how we all listened to him, and, he just can't take no for an answer. But, please don't feel embarrassed. It happens. I'm sure I've signed something that, just signing it to, get past the person or whatever, but, don't be embarrassed. We appreciate you coming out tonight. Hopefully, you can rally the troops for June 26th and come out.
Yes, we have. They're under penalty if they don't show up.
Thank you. Eileen?
Eileen Moody Gardner, Post Road. I have a couple of I'm still trying to understand how all of this went down. So I just have some questions. Like, I've said it on Facebook pages and whatnot, like, I feel like this whole thing was a series of missteps and misunderstandings along the way. Without calling anyone a bad guy, but I do have some questions so when Marcus Lewis came to the town, asking that he wanted to do it, he was the tennis coach, at the varsity tennis coach, and is he still?
So in 2017, that was my first
Okay.
meeting, he came to us, he was the varsity head coach.
Okay.
I
is he
think for the
still-
boys team, I don't know, maybe for both.
Okay.
Yes, he still is the varsity.
He still is.
He's still, yes,
For
he's
the
still.
boys varsity.
Okay. Was he coming with the concern that students weren't joining? Did he feel like the program might die? Or was it going away? And then, I guess the other question I would have is within the town, with the other programs that will run through the other association you're with, I don't know who it is, I forget who it is now. They're the two women that run Sue Adams and, are those programs like all Littleton kids? Is it that 80% mark? I'm just curious.
100% all
None of-
Littleton.
None of that's made really clear anywhere along the way.
Who's registered for our current?
Yeah, like,
Absolutely.
is it 80%? I mean, we know that the lake was 60-40 last year.
Right.
So it wasn't even, 80% of people in town that were,
I mean, I can run the numbers,
That'd be
but
great.
generally, in a lot of our after-school programs, it tends to be kids that are coming directly from Littleton school.
Sure.
So
I
there
mean-
could be like one or two kids that maybe have like a school choice type of thing.
yeah, sure.
But in general, yeah, it's pretty much 100% Littleton kids.
Okay, so do you know if the high school program was dying at that point?
So the high school program was dormant for a while.
Okay,
And one thing to keep in mind about Littleton, our interscholastic athletic program for a town our size is unbelievably far-reaching. Our participation rate is very high in terms of the number of students that participate, but we also offer more sports than most schools, districts our size.
sure.
For instance, we have boys and girls lacrosse. Maynard does not have boys and girls lacrosse. Air does not have boys and girls lacrosse. I know the lacrosse coach at Bromfield, it's a co-op between Bromfield, Parker, Maynard, and Air. So they need 4 towns just to put together one boys lacrosse team. We have our own boys lacrosse team with no co-op. At some point, though, you reach a point where you cannot offer any more sports because you're gonna bastardize something else to get the enrollment necessary to support it. So to have for instance, to have a girls volleyball team in the fall, which is when they play, would be difficult because you've already got a field hockey team and a soccer team and a cross-country team. So at some point, something's gonna give, you're not gonna be able to support it all. So the fact that we actually have a tennis team in a town our size, along with lacrosse and track and softball and baseball in the spring, is pretty outstanding. And it was dormant, we have got it going, it's fully registered, we compete at the boys and girls level and have for several years. We don't feel that we're at risk of losing the program. But to sort of answer, I think the real question you're asking is, do our coaches try to develop a pipeline to make sure that they can sustain the program year over year over year? Absolutely. We can't require it because Massachusetts is funny, the MIAA is difficult to deal with at times. They don't let coaches have contact or do programming or development with their teams in the off-season. Absolutely not required. If Marcus Lewis, as the varsity tennis coach, wants to get his kids better, he has to do it. He can offer a program, and as long as less than 50% are Littleton kids, he can have them in the program. But he can't have just the Littleton tennis team show up to give them lessons in the summer because he's out of season. Just as the basketball coach can't do a camp just for the Littleton boys basketball team. But there are ways of doing it. And the other thing that they often, our coaches often do, is they will run a camp, but it's partly to develop the youth program and keep them and introduce them to the varsity level experience, but it's also a fundraiser. At no point that I know of did Marcus Lewis ask, I want to run a fundraiser for the varsity tennis program and I want to do a camp to do it. If that's what he was, like a one-week camp, which is typically what you see, a one-week girls basketball camp or boys basketball camp, if that was something he had pitched, that's the kind of dialogue we have with Park and Rec, and we would have said, yeah, absolutely, we do it for the basketball team, we do it for the soccer program, knock yourself out. Here, let's figure out the dates so that it doesn't conflict with another tennis camp that's around, or a basketball camp. We're not gonna have 2 basketball camps trying to use the gym at the same week, but as long as we stagger it, we're good to go. That's not what was put forth. If it had been, I think we would have been having a very different discussion and a very different outcome. As we heard at this point, when he did change his rhetoric at one point and said, well, I do need something, we gave him, he with the athletic director, put together, it's not really an interscholastic program at the middle school, but it's middle school age kids getting to play some matches, and then as 7th and 8th graders, they've played a little bit, and now they're ready if they want to play varsity tennis in high school. So that program is in place, and it was no problem with Park and Rec, it was an easy solution, and we executed on it.
It was encouraged by
Yeah,
park commissioners for him to do so.
And those kids that are on that middle school team, I talked to Mike Lynn today. He admittedly he doesn't have much to do with that team, but those kids, my understanding is those kids currently are being bused to Marcus Lewis's facility where they practice and play. So and again, we're not fighting them on that.
Yeah, I'm really not a hero there, I'm just
No,
trying to.
I was just making a point.
His initial interaction with us in no way was gonna be free or a feeder program or anything else. And I was chairman for 2 or 3 years in that period too. And it was strictly to run for-profit tennis camps, and Littleton was just to be another facility for him to run those at. It had nothing to do with the schools or anything else. In fact, until I read Mike's letter and Alicia's presentation, I had no idea he thought he was running a feeder program, because that never came up. It was always strictly just, I want to run this, and you won't let me.
Do you have anything else?
No, just as I said, I think all of it seems, from what I've been seeing on it, a lot of it seems like a series of missteps, miscommunications, even when it came to the egg hunt and whatnot. As a resident, it's just, I think there's something that everyone can learn from it. Part of it is active communication and responding to people when they ask questions.
So the egg hunt has not, the egg
No.
hunt was years
And
ago.
I know there were, and I know.
And I
like, even with the-
detail how we're working with the
coding
community.
thing,
We
right,
worked with the Girl Scouts this year to do the egg
I
hunt.
agree.
Okay.
I've watched the other meetings, I've been to the other meetings, I heard those miscommunications happening, like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
But
And
should,
working on that would be good. We don't have to have an argument about it, all I'm saying is working on the way we communicate, all of us, would be good.
I'm not gonna argue with that. I'm just saying that, I would point out that bringing an incident that happened 10, 15 years ago
Sure.
back to say that this board or our current administration is not communicating well, I don't think is fair to them. And I'm not saying you're making that argument, but I've seen it out there. That's not a fair argument.
Sure.
Thanks. Yes?
David Harden, 19 Russell Street. I have a comment and a question. First comment is, it seems like a non-Littleton resident is trying to dictate how Littleton should run their programs, and I think that's disgraceful. The second thing I have is, and this goes to the bylaw, if I interpret what you're saying, someone could come along and say, I'm going to have a wedding reception in room 103. And you've got a meeting here. Well, tough, no meeting, I've got the wedding reception. or they could have a wedding reception in the middle of one of the high school fields. And that seems to be the way I'm interpreting what that thing says.
And that's one of the things that's, if you watch the Board of Selectmen meeting, Selectman Gerbig was trying to formulate a question based on the reading of the bylaw, and he had a difficult time doing it. But he interpreted it one way, Tim interpreted it a different way, you may interpret it a third way. The language is difficult, and it's vague, and I think it allows for, like I just said, for one committee, us to interpret it one way, and the schools may interpret it a different way. It doesn't fix anything, and that's the major issue for me, it doesn't fix
The
anything.
problem I see is he can interpret it one way and the town interprets it another way, and I can guarantee you there's gonna be lawsuits due to
Yeah.
those interpretations.
I think that's highly likely. Thanks. Yeah.
Hi, Ian Wiedegartner, 25 Maplehurst Road. So this is an existing vagueness within an existing bylaw?
This is not an existing bylaw, they're trying to create a new bylaw.
Okay. So the proposed thing to go in is in itself vague.
Yeah, I mean, that's my opinion.
And vagueness leads to miscommunication.
I would agree with that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes.
What if,
We just have your name, please?
Harvey Atkins, Newtown Road.
Thank you.
What if a second company comes in and says, we're a nonprofit? Now, part of your new bylaw says that they get priority. So this would give them some priority over certain things, uses of fields or school facilities and things like that. I would think you could pin the bylaw down a little more to, you could have 2 or 3 companies coming along. You have this one right now, and what's to stop another and another from coming in and doing similar things?
Yeah. Want to feel that one?
I have a couple comments related to some of the issues that were just raised from a school committee perspective. Nonprofit is a funny, you can be nonprofit and meet the letter of the law, but like, for instance, AAU baseball is ostensibly nonprofit, but don't kid yourself, those coaches are getting paid to coach a team.
No, I know.
But the way they do their accounting, totally legal and perfectly transparent above board, it meets the criteria of a nonprofit.
Right.
Versus, for instance, it's a very busy season at the high school, we have dance recitals up there every weekend, and it's chaos and massive, but we love to support it because there's a lot of joy going on. Those are clearly for-profit entities, so where's the balance? Is AAU baseball different than a dance studio? I don't think so, but they account for it differently, so one's a nonprofit and one's a for-profit, right? So, not that they're gonna compete, I don't think AAU baseball is gonna try, they're not gonna do a dance recital out in the middle of the ball field, but, the other thing is that in Littleton, we are small, right? And we have to share resources. We have to share fields and we have to share buildings. We're not like other communities where the playing fields for youth athletics are distinctly separate from the playing fields for interscholastic athletics, where the municipal recreation facility is its own building with its own rooms and its own ability to program 24/7 without being in conflict with, the after-school extracurricular activities that are part of the school department role. So communication is ongoing, but there's almost always gonna be hiccups and bumps. We try to smooth it out, we try to learn as we go forward, but until we have much more clear demarcation and separation, it's gonna happen. There's a certain inevitability to it. And the goal of the MOU is to try to anticipate and head off those kinds of problems, so that we're not duking it out day after day, week after week, hour after hour. It sets a level of expectation that we can charge our staff to move forward with, so us unpaid volunteers, don't have to get involved and work out on a regular basis. And it works. There are people who get frustrated in the short term, but in the long term it works. And it does improve over time, and our goal is to get better, and when issues are raised like this, we can work on them. But to have a special town meeting to put in a bylaw that's trying to supersede an MOU because one person isn't happy with the particular outcome they got is unfortunate. And it really supersedes what we're all trying to do. And I do have one comment. I have a comment as a as a Littleton resident, but I'll wait till we,
Well, I was just gonna, echo you, and I apologize for the brashness of the phrase, but this creating a bylaw is like bringing a bazooka to a knife fight. The reality is that as departments, we're charged with working with each other and communicating, and it's worked out really well with the school department. So in this case, creating something like a bylaw like this is really affecting, or could possibly affect, the day-to-day interactions with things like Parks and Rec, School Department, Elder and Human Services, Council on Aging, Library.
unintended consequences.
What's that?
Unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences. So, I agree that we should always keep talking about these, issues and coming up with better ways to plan and organize together, 100%. But again, I think this is a bit overkill and not a well-worded way of doing so. Sorry.
Quick question, Alicia, has
Yeah.
any, to your knowledge, has any Littleton resident, student sought to play tennis or have tennis instruction and it not be provided by the Park and Rec Commission? To your,
No, we have programs for adults, kids, everything. Yeah,
so the need is being filled?
year-round, yeah.
The need is
And it's
being
not
filled.
just, we do after-school programs, we do summer programs. We started doing pickleball, all those kind of things. So, we're even branching out a little bit.
Thank you.
Mike Fontanello, 213 Harwood Avenue, speaking strictly as a resident and longtime town meeting attendee. The issue with a proposed bylaw and the MOU and how we work it is certainly open for debate, and I have no particular problem with that. I may have a point of view, but I certainly don't begrudge somebody else saying it's not working the way I think it should. I have suggestions about how to make it better. I have no problem with that. I have a significant problem with the fact that this is a special town meeting with a single article. As someone who's worked very hard through the town meeting process on a variety of things that were important to me, Alumni Field, the Littleton Track, renovation of Russell Street, the master plan update, which I participated in, at no point did any of us that were working that and trying to affect outcomes that we were passionately advocating for say to ourselves, hey, you know what would help our cause? Let's take this outside the normal town meeting process into a special town meeting just for us. Now, I know there's pushback about, yeah, but then you overcrowd the agenda and it's very difficult for people. That's true, and at times we probably could have pushed one or two things out to another scheduled town meeting that we regularly have to make it more palatable. But at the same time, it's that opportunity for people to come together, constituted as a body, knowing what the agenda is, all of it, to inform ourselves, have the debate, and vote. People are not gonna come out 6, 8, 10 times a year to talk about one or two things at a time. We don't have the capacity to do that as a community. For better or for worse, New England works by a town meeting. We regularly schedule them, and it should really only be in the most extraordinary of circumstances that we would have a special town meeting to consider one particular item. And I wouldn't think it would be something relative to how these boards and these departments work out who gets tennis lessons. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes?
Has, Anita Harding, 19 Russell Street, has town council weighed in on this bylaw and their feelings his feelings about it at this point?
Yeah, so the town solicitor has spoken with Nina Nazarian. I don't know if so he has spoken, but at this point in time, any information that you kind of make privy at this point would make it public. And if this is something that turns into a legal situation, then, we will hold off on any statements at this time.
And for that matter, I've heard the argument that, and I detail how Mr. Lewis was not ignored. He just didn't like his answer. But, once the petition was submitted, the town was already getting threats of lawsuits. So, I think that, the town was guarded against communicating out of fear of what they may say, and it could come back to bite us. So, we've communicated with Mr. Lewis for the last 7 years, as that's the time frame he uses. We've heard him. you know, so the notion that they were ignored, the petitioners were ignored is just not true.
Is there gonna be any article in the paper that is gonna remind people to go to the meeting on the 26th and how important it is? I mean, a lot of people go on vacation, the week before, or they're starting to run vacation, they're busy and they may forget. Is there gonna be any kind of a tick that says, don't forget, you should be at town meeting?
I don't know, I know the packet was sent out.
Yep.
Sure you got it at your house. I got mine last week.
Yes,
As
that,
far as a reminder, I don't know if the Board of Selectmen meets between now and the
23rd.
meeting.
24th, sorry, my fault.
Yep, they meet, the 24th.
So I can try to attend that and, you know, during public input, remind everyone. Hopefully, you know, they'll remind, I don't know if we have any mailings or.
Can we tell the town crier to when he's ringing his bell? to the
Yeah.
people?
We could try that.
There you go. That's another job for Andrew Samarco.
Yeah, he needs another. So we'll blast it out on all our website and, you know, social media and whatnot. Hopefully it's in people's calendars already.
do you object to us putting up signs, vote no?
No, I would encourage it. Thank you.
You can put it in a church flyer too.
What?
People put it in a church flyer.
That's true.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard? Okay. Well, thank you all very much for coming out and sharing your viewpoints.
You can entertain a
We
motion.
appreciate it. Huh?
Are you guys gonna entertain a motion?
Yeah, I was planning on.
Well, then ready to dismiss us all and hear what happens.
I wasn't dismissing you, I was just thanking everyone for coming. So I will entertain a motion to either support or not support the article at the June 26th special town meeting.
I'll make a motion not to support the article at the special town meeting on the 26th of June.
Second?
So the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of not supporting the article, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone who would like to support it? Okay. So we have voted not to support the article, the special town meeting. Thanks again for coming. More than welcome to stay. We got some hot topics coming up, but
Wanna learn about grills?
Yeah, and he's not back yet.
all right. So next on the agenda is accepting a donation from William and Carol White of $1,000 for fishing dock at Long Lake. Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate your support.
I think Tim might have more input on this, and we could, ask him later when he comes back, but, there was a husband and wife that decided that they would like to donate $1,000 for creation of a fishing dock specifically at Long Lake. I know they were we've been working with Amy Green upstairs at Conservation, and Tim, being down there kind of overseeing the beach. So that was something that we were working with them to try to figure out. So I believe the concept was over on the conservation side of Long Lake, there used to be docks that were put out there, and they've kind of degraded over time. So that was something that we were kind of focusing on that area, not near the swim box. These funds would be going towards helping create that, which, we were planning on working with conservation to do anyway. So it's a very kind donation from Mr. and Mrs. White.
Excellent. So I'll entertain a motion if you guys are all right with that.
Sure. I'll make a motion to accept the gift of $1,000 from Carol and William White to build a fishing dock at Long Lake.
All those in favor?
I'll second it.
Oh, sorry. Second time tonight. Thank you, Fred. All right. Now, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on, do you want to skip that one until Tim gets back?
I do.
Okay, so we'll go to the director's report.
Alrighty. Okay, so let's see here. So right now, in the office, we're working on the end of year evaluations. So we will have to have that all done before the end of June, because our fiscal year ends as of July 1. We'll be in fiscal year 2020. Can't believe that, can you? Feels like that was down the tunnel like forever ago. We're currently working at that, on that in the office. I did want to bring it up to discuss with the board because technically the chair is supposed to do my evaluation. However, we did do, Fred's giggling over there because he tried to get out of it in the past. Over the past 2 years, we did have an arrangement with Keith Bergman, who is the town administrator, that that would be his responsibility. So that agreement ended this past March. So you I guess Anthony should have stayed here for this one.
Yeah.
So technically, you could ask Anthony Ansaldi to do the evaluation, or the option is for you to do it as well. Or you guys could do some sort of to get whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I don't really care. If you give me feedback, that's awesome. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
If we can go offline and talk about what the process is.
Yeah, well, I'll touch base with Anthony and see how he thinks we should best handle this. I'll, at the very least, probably have some input for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, if he wants me to participate, I will. If he wants me to do the whole thing, I will.
Okay. But next year, that's on whomever the chair is.
Would you
which
like
is
some input?
Input?
What do you mean? Say that again?
So because the agreement is done, we had a 2-year agreement with Keith.
Oh, right.
So since that is no longer
Okay, so you're saying it's ultimately my
it will
choice?
be your responsibility in the future, is what I'm saying. You have an option this year,
Okay,
but next year,
unless I make an agreement again.
unless you make an agreement again,
Yeah.
you could do.
I mean, it seems to make sense. They're more integrated in the day-to-day operations.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think just thinking about this now, I think it makes the most sense for them, for Anthony or someone in his position to do the actual evaluation with you, and then, with some feedback from the chair.
Okay.
So again, I'll have that discussion with him and see
Yeah.
where he is.
To be quite honest, I've asked Anne to look into the possibility of doing a 360 review, which would mean my staff would review me as well. I think that's a really important piece that, I'm open to. I want to know how to work and serve them better. I don't know, she was kind of like, what? But that's the kind of feedback that I'm used to. So I think that would be beneficial because they are with me day in, day out.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would look like, and there is nothing available at this point in time to do that for this year. But that is something I would like to work with her for next year as an option.
Yeah.
So if somebody else, a department head, wants to do that and take that as an opportunity, awesome. But that's something I would look like as far as an evaluation goes.
Okay.
Now, I'm just gonna throw this out, even though you don't wanna hear it.
What's that?
Was my experience with it was, I think I did one of yours.
Yeah.
And several of Kate's, and Kate and I spoke once a week. You and I, when you came, because it was your first year, we
Yep.
spoke more frequently.
Yeah.
The input from Keith, who at the time was the only person here, Anthony wasn't here, was very limited. And it was more specifically his hot spots, things that were brought to his attention. So he didn't see the day-to-day operations. What he saw was any complaints, not that there were with you, but just things that complained, or things that they thought were important. Like, every year was, why don't you have any pocket parks? Well, we don't have any money, so that's why we don't have any. And so, in a way, I think their input, while helpful, is less valuable than what and you probably realize yours is.
Yeah.
From having dealt with Alicia on a day-to-day basis, and that's just mine, and I'm not trying to throw it to
No,
where you feel
that's-
obligated to do it.
No, it's good feedback.
And when moving forward with the amazing staff that we have, now is the time for me to be able to take that opportunity to fly at 30,000 feet and figure out, the 10-year plan. And that's something that, 100% want input from you on that, of goal setting and what those goals should be. So, because that's something we all have to work together in tandem to create. So that's important feedback to get as well.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so what else? So I finished my Suffolk University, Massachusetts Municipal Associates Master Certification Program in Government Leadership.
Nice
That's a very
job.
long title. Thank you.
That's a really long title.
So it is. I will be graduating on next Monday night at Suffolk University. Anthony has been very kind to represent the town of Littleton to come, so it'll be great. It's really cool.
Great.
It's
Congratulations.
an awesome honor. to
Not
do
getting
it.
new business cards.
No, I'm not. I'm too cheap to do that.
4x6 card, I'd get the title on it.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, right.
All right, so bad news. I am gonna have to take a medical leave. I have a surgery that is scheduled for July 11th, and I will have to be out for 6 weeks for recovery time.
Okay.
It's gonna drive me crazy because I am not a downtime kind of gal. But theoretically, if everything goes as planned, then I should be back in the office. I know me, I'll be back in before then. But August 23rd would be the soonest that I can come back.
Okay, we'll
So-
take your time,
Yeah,
get better.
Speedy recovery.
We'll send you frequent updates and you can.
Hope so.
I'm sure.
I'll be like,
Yeah.
come on, guys. All right, so yeah, so that piece is done. All right, so we talked about that. Oh, Steve Venuti wanted me to make reference to this. So the next meeting in July, we're going to need to take a vote about transfer for end of year budget. So there were some mistakes that were made on budgeting through, the previous finance director was kind of leaving as we were, finishing up the budget process. So there's some issues. So Steve Venuti, who's the treasurer, who's kind of slogging through all this stuff to close out the end of the year, he'll have a final number for us, and financially, we're fine. So we're not gonna have any issues with transferring it, but I think there was estimated numbers of hours worked, and we're like right at the precipice of like payroll. So we might have to transfer some money. We will have to transfer some money from certain areas. So we'll have that all reported so you guys can take a vote. But he wanted me to let you know that ahead of time rather than just kind of springing that on you for
Okay.
July. And I'll be there for that meeting because that's on the 9th. So
So as soon as you get that information,
100%,
if you can
so you
get it
can
to
review
us,
it.
well, a week, that will
Yeah.
give us enough time to review it.
yeah.
That would be helpful.
Okay. All the parks and athletic fields were treated through Central Mass Mosquito Project, which is awesome. It's free service, so you at home can go to the website and get your own neighborhood treated. It's free, so please do that. That was something I wanted to jump on since we had the issue scare of the West Nile virus last year. So I wanted to be proactive on that, so I'll stay on top of that. And then we've also started the water quality testing down at Long Lake a few weeks ago. We're doing really good. The average has been around 20 parts per million, which is really good.
What is that measuring?
So that's measuring E. coli. So if, I think it's 236 parts per million, we'd have to shut down the lake. So the numbers have been really low over the past years, especially since we brought in the Goose Patrol, believe it or not. That has really helped the water quality. So that's been a really amazing service that we've added on for down at the lake.
Excellent.
And staff training, we're getting to the place where Camp T and track are completely trained, all done. The beach is getting really close to being completed. School's gonna let out, so then Camp T starts the last week of June. It's
Next
wild to
Monday.
think. Monday.
Wow.
Monday. I know, time has gone by so fast. So that is where we're at. The next Park Commission meeting is on Tuesday, July 9th. We've got third Thursday coming up on June 20th, so this Thursday, 5 to 8 p.m. We've got live music. It's going to be an awesome, great time. And then we are also running a 3-on-3 basketball tournament called King of the Castle. Amazing. They did a really great job with the jerseys. They are beautiful. Yeah, they're double-sided and they're just mint. They're sweet. So you can still register. So get out there, sign up for the 3-on-3 tournament. I bought a little crown for Kaz to wear.
Nice. I did. I took my kids last year to it. Some of their buddies were playing,
Yeah.
and they were killing me all day because I didn't sign them up.
Oh
so
no!
I haven't signed them up this year either. So I should get cracking on that and see if we can figure out a couple of their buddies to field a team with. But it was well run last year. The kids who
Amazing.
were participating loved it.
Yeah, it's a blast.
It was third and fourth graders all the way through adult, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
So if
Remember
you like
watching some of the-
basketball, come
I
here.
remember watching some of the adult games, and it was crazy. Good basketball.
Yeah.
Shocking, actually.
Yeah. All right, so that is all I've got for that. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Nope.
Sure got everything. All right.
Do we have
So-
anything under new business?
We don't have anything under new business.
Okay. Can we get started on the grills? Do you know?
Yeah, I know a little bit about it. So we purchased grills.
So let me just
Yeah.
let's tee it up. So this is a discussion on placement of grills at Long Lake Beach.
Yes. I'm gonna send Tim a text really quick. We are starting grills.
Yeah, Eileen.
So, I have a question / concern. Right now, at the lake, the docks are out, and the further dock seems to be significantly closer in than it has in the past. And I don't know why that placement is.
I can tell you exactly.
And the water level is significantly lower. I know there were some issues with the installation of the
Beaver deceiver.
I can't call it that, I'm sorry.
Sounds so good rolling off the tongue, though.
Yeah.
So, I know there was some issues with that, whatever, things happen, but now the lake is super shallow and the dock is
Yeah.
closer. That if I walk out, last year, at 6 feet tall, I could walk out to the last dock, stand and put my head up, and I could stand there flat-footed.
Yeah.
This year, if I walk out to that dock, it stops here,
Yeah.
which means that about any child 5 feet or under can hit the ground when they jump off the dock.
So they're not supposed to jump off the dock.
Yeah, but okay, and in real life.
So
Just like
the
the
dock
dogs.
will be moved.
Yeah, okay, it's gonna be
one of
moved.
those things, it's a laborious job. So we had to get the dock in, because we are starting to do like the swim testing
Sure,
for programs, so it was something we needed to do. And we were also planning on trying to stage it out with the amount that the water would drop. But
But the
with the
drop
issue, with the immediate drop because of the beaver deceiver not working correctly. So that is definitely, we've been focusing on getting all the training and everything done with the staff. So that will be a focus this next week to make sure that everything's set and ready to go for us to open.
Okay,
Yeah.
and my other question is, well, there are two more questions really, and these are follow-ups to past meetings. One, have we learned more about the horsepower with that boat? It's not gonna be over 20 horsepower, right?
We've heard nothing as far as having a conversation with the Board of Selectmen. We have not heard back
'Cause
from
that would
the
require a
Coast
change in
Guard.
bylaw. That would require a change in
Correct, so
bylaw.
we don't have any information at this point in time. It wouldn't require a bylaw change, and we wouldn't want to do that. We want to keep it at 20 horsepower. What it would change, or what would need to happen, is we would have to get a reprieve from the Board of Selectmen to allow us to have like a higher horsepower engine.
Okay, all right. You will get pushback on that.
But that's okay, I
Not
understand
just
that,
from me.
yep.
And secondly, the other thing that I've been waiting for feedback on was the fences. What's up with them? Have you chosen which ones you're gonna put up? When can we expect to see them in? In regard to someone bringing in a wheelchair, walking up from Woodland Ave, they're on a slant, is that gonna swing in?
So we've already discussed on what we were doing. We're gonna do the posts with the rope. That was already decided in the past. I don't know what the implementation time is for those to actually go in.
Okay, but if that's going in along Woodland and, no, I'm sorry, not Woodland.
Not Woodland,
On
no.
Lake Shore and Beach, where the little wooded area is, if that's going in there, how will that gate work?
Well, that's the piece that that hasn't been completed yet. So we will make sure, since that is definitely going to be accessibility, the access for individuals in wheelchairs or with limited accessibility, that 100% will be part of figuring out how that makes sense to operate. Yeah.
Okay, so probably next week we can expect to see the docks moved.
I would imagine this week, right?
What document?
The middle one.
The last dock, or the only other dock that's not.
What docks are we talking about?
That like we used to call the L dock.
What
No,
about it?
No, not the owl dock, the deeper dock,
What about it?
Oh, the deep dock?
yeah.
She says it's shallower now.
It is, because they drain the lake.
Right, but is there a safety concern as far as the depth of the water and?
No, there's no diving off of it.
And that's enforced by our lifeguards.
Yeah.
So again, what happens after hours, we would hope that people would follow the policies,
Sure.
but we can't
So
enforce it if we're not
it's
there.
staying right there.
I mean, we might move it out a couple feet, but
Well, it's like 10 feet more in than it was last year. It's
Okay.
about 10 feet closer to,
I'll take a look at it. I mean, am I got
It
moved
is
in
a-
by kids
it
or?
is more to the left than it was last year, and it's about 10 feet in.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely take a look at it, but as far as the depth goes, there's not that much of a difference between where it is now and where the buoy line is, just with the amount of water that was taken out of the lake.
Yeah, so I know, because it's, 5 feet.
Yeah, it's about that. I would say that that's probably a fair summation. I mean, the one thing that it does kind of do is it affords some parents to be able to take, kids who not necessarily wouldn't have been able to utilize that
Yeah.
before out there. I was down there teaching lifeguard class this weekend, so I kind of saw some parents kind of just out there putting kids up there and things like that. So, yeah, I'll take a look at it. I can tell you when we set it, like I said, there was only about a foot worth of distance difference, water-wise, between where the buoy line is and where that is. So,
In fact, that's 5 to 6 feet though, that's a pretty significant difference. I mean, it's a foot.
So the concern you're worried about kids diving off of it, which they shouldn't be doing, or?
That and just the swimmability of it, like, it's just, you want to go further.
Okay, yeah, we can take a look at it. I've really had zero time to get the beach set up this year with all of the stuff that we've kind of been doing in lieu of, our time that we normally spend down at the beach.
Yeah,
Sure.
By this time, the past 2 years, I've been 100% ready to go, and we're finishing everything up this week. So it's one of those things that, yeah, we definitely can take a look at it and see and assess where we're gonna keep it for the whole summer.
Thanks. Thank you. So we were just diving into the grills at Long Lake Beach.
Yep.
We're kind of waiting for you to.
So
Carry that
conservation,
conversation.
I was just up at
Oh, right.
doing that. So
How did
they
the
voted
conservation
no.
meeting go?
Okay.
It was good. So they are voting to not support the article as well.
Unanimous?
Unanimous vote.
Great.
They were also very concerned about the repercussions that it could have on conservation property, as well as what could happen if, somebody decided to target one of their properties for, telling them how they should rent and do everything, because, they agree that we all have policies in place that work best for us right now.
Great.
Thank you
Yep.
for doing that, appreciate it.
All right, grills.
Yeah. You want to tell us
We're
about
gonna
it?
put 'em. What do you want?
So we do have the grills still in the sea container that we got last year after we had the conversations the years previous. One of the biggest things that we do get for rental times at Long Lake is that people want to come down, they want to have barbecues, they want to have birthday parties, they want a space that they can actually rent that gives them a table, that gives them a spot. And just this weekend, Alicia was in the office when I fielded the call on Wednesday or Thursday. I had spoken to a lady for the second time. I think she was hoping to get somebody else on the phone, that she could not have a grill. She could not cook out at Long Lake Beach and bring her own barbecue grill to the beach. I also happened to be there on Saturday teaching lifeguard class when she showed up and interacted
With a
with
grill?
her again. Yes. So one of the things that I did talk to police chief, fire chief, is we had walked the site last year prior to purchasing the grills, and had looked at a couple different options on where to put them. So as part of the update, it would just be to hopefully pick maybe 2 pads that would be located in the where there's no canopy behind the playground, and then possibly put one over towards the boat ramp side of the park. Put some railroad ties down, fill it with stone dust where the picnic table would sit, and then put a little 2x3 concrete pad. The grills are removable, so we can pull them out at the end of the season. And then they're also lockable, so we can lock them when we're not there. So.
Charcoal, I assume.
Charcoal, yeah, they're the black grills you would see at any state park.
Yep.
So there would be an aluminum trash can and a fire can, that a fire extinguisher issued when somebody rented it in order to be used. If
And
they were rented.
they would return the trash can and the.
So the trash can would stay there, but the extinguisher, yeah, we would take in
So
and
is-
out, and the lifeguards would be charged with cleaning up the grills after they were cooled
Okay.
and putting the waste into the bins.
And then, okay, so that was gonna be my question, who's gonna empty those barrels?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, after the grill was done, everything would be allowed to cool off overnight, and then we would empty them in the morning as part of our cleanup duties.
Okay. Sounds good.
Was so there were two band playground and one where?
Hopefully over towards like the boat ramp area. It really depends on where, that's where we're putting the snack shack now.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking it might be more towards like where the sailing tent is, where the old septic used to
Yeah.
be, kind of back a little further. Because that is our like #1 birthday party rental spot, because people rent those two giant tents that we do sailing camp under. They rent them on the weekends. That's kind of where we put all of our birthday parties right now.
Those tents stay up all year?
All summer.
All summer,
And
yeah.
then we take them down. They're basically just two carports that we put up.
Yeah, okay.
And this was supported by fire chief, right?
Yes, so I walked it with Scott, I believe it was June of last summer,
Yeah.
so.
You said they're gonna have like metal ash cans?
Aluminum,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, the ones you see
Yep.
at the hardware store with the aluminum lid and.
Galvanized?
Galvanized, thank you, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Do you need a vote on that?
I don't know, I was just bringing it to your attention.
Okay, great.
I mean, technically you are changing something, so it can't hurt.
So yeah, I mean, that would be the only caveat would be, I guess, if you wanna, it does change our open flame policy for, specific use of park and recreation owned grills. I mean, we're still not gonna allow anybody to bring in anything to the park. But that would be the only,
Because currently, like, the rules and regulations do say no open flames in any parks. But that was you can't bring your own little hibachi.
cause my first summer, that was one of the issues, somebody brought a little hibachi grill and like lit one of the picnic tables on fire. So.
Okay, so, I mean, but we'd still enforce no bringing your own grill, you can use
Right.
ours.
Yep, here it is. So, and they'll be first come, first served, free to use, unless you want to reserve the spot, at which point it will be, $25 an hour, just like anything else that we do.
Mhm.
So, if you get down there and you're savvy and Saturday you wanna do your thing and you wanna have your, grill set up, just get down there and get there early.
Not your grill, our grill.
Our grill, yes.
When will
Yes.
you have them in?
Mid-July, we're pretty backed up right now, so we're really backed up right now.
Just a suggestion, maybe wait and get a map of the beach area that shows where they're gonna be, so we can specifically address that that's where they're gonna go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is that a good idea? Vote on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's, we'll circle back in
Table it.
July. Yep,
Yeah, definitely not in a hurry at this point. We've been sitting on them for a year already, so.
yeah, I think that'll be a good addition. All right,
That's all she wrote, kids.
so if we have nothing under new business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I was ready.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Third Thursday this week.
Okay. Third Thursday this week, everybody.
As I said, we got live music,
Wanna hit the-
food trucks, all that good stuff.
You also have
Thank you.
the 3D.
Thank you. You guys should keep